If you're using a CREALITY laser or 3D printer enclosure and you're finding it dark and dingy in there, I have the solution for you in the form of this LED lighting kit. It's available on my website embracemaking.com, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how to install it. First, we'll have a look at what's included in the kit, and the main items of interest here are these two aluminum LED bars with diffuser lenses. To power the LEDs, there is a wall adapter. Now it is the North American style plug, but it is rated up to 240 volts, so if you're outside of North America, you'll need some sort of adapter. You'll also get two wire extension harnesses, one without a switch and one with an inline switch. Both have male and female barrel jack connectors on the ends. You'll also get all of the necessary installation hardware, including custom mounts for the inside of the enclosure. These ones here are for their 8mm fiberglass rods, which are found in their laser enclosure as well as some of their 3D printer tents. CREALITY also offers a 3D printer tent with 16mm metal rods, and I have mounts for that as well. You can select between the two sizes on my website. We'll start the assembly by grabbing one of the brackets, a metal clip, as well as one of the screws that comes in the hardware kit. The metal clips look like this, and we're going to be installing them on top of the plastic bracket. The metal clip will sit on top of the plastic bracket, and you may notice that the hole in the clip is drilled slightly off center. You'll want the side with more material facing the outside of the bracket away from that loop. And if it isn't already obvious, you're going to use the screw to attach the two together. Make sure that it's not loose and wobbling around like this. If it is, give that screw another half turn until it's tight. Just remember that you're screwing into a plastic bracket and you're only holding a very light LED bar, so you don't have to go too crazy with how tight that screw is. You'll want to repeat the process, so we have a total of 4 completed brackets. I have 2 of them here, and we're going to be attaching them to the LED bar. This is pretty straightforward. We'll take the barrel jack connector and slip it through the ring of that bracket. And then if you look on the back of the extrusion, you'll notice that there's a channel, and that channel will snap onto the metal clip. Then we can simply repeat the process for the other side. Then you'll have a completed bar that looks like this, and none of those clips should feel wobbly or loose. If you accidentally bent one of those clips and your connection is a little loose, you can simply twist the bar off to disconnect it from the clip, and it should pop right off. And we can easily fix that clip. So taking a look at it, you can see it has 2 little wings. Using a flathead screwdriver, we can bend those wings out just a touch. If you bend it too far, you won't be able to get the LED bar back on. You can always bend it back in the other direction, but trust me when I say you just need to bend it a very small amount to go from slightly loose to nice and snug. And so that's what I did here, and now you can see the connection is very secure. Now we can grab our enclosure or tent and flip it upside down. I'll be demonstrating on this laser enclosure, but the same process applies to the 3D printer tents. We need to remove the outer skin of the enclosure, so we'll undo the Velcro loops, and this will free the skin from the frame. Then we can work our way around the entire tent, slowly removing the cover from the frame until it's completely free. Then we can take the entire frame and just flip it upside down. I'm going to be installing the LED bars on these 2 side upper frame members right here, so this is what we're going to be focusing on. To get the LED bar installed, we're going to remove the frame member, and these just pull out of the corner joints. And now we just have to decide which of the connectors is going to point towards the front of the machine, and this is going to determine which side the power connector comes out. And this will all be determined by the female barrel jack connector. And so right now, in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, that's the front of the enclosure. And so if I want the power cable coming up from this side here, I'll point the female barrel jack towards that side. Now in my case, I want the opposite. I want the power connector coming through to the other side of the enclosure. So I'm going to point the female barrel jack towards the back, and that will allow me to run the power cable from the other side. So on this side, I have the male connector pointing towards the front, and that will just remain disconnected. We'll see that in a minute. Right now, we're going to take our fiberglass rod and we're going to slip it through the hole in those brackets. And this would be the exact same process if you had the 16mm metal rods that come in some of the CREALITY 3D printer enclosures. So now we can take our rods, push them back into the corner connectors, and you'll see the LED is facing towards the inside of the enclosure, and we're ready to move on to the other side. And on this side of the frame, we're going to repeat the exact same process, but this time we're going to have the female barrel jack pointing towards the front of the frame. And again, this is because we want the cable with the switch, as well as the power cable coming in to this side of the tent. And as with the other side, you'll just want to make sure the LED bar is pointing towards the inside of the enclosure. Now we can grab our cable extension without the switch, and we're going to be connecting our two LED bars. There are male and female barrel jack connectors on either side, and these barrel jack connectors push together and then twist to lock themselves into place so they don't accidentally come apart. Then we can use our cable ties to tie up any excess wire, and once we're done, we can clip the ends off the cable ties, and we should have a nice clean installation here. Now we can flip the frame back over, grab our cover, and begin to reinstall our cover over top of our LED bars. These covers tend to fit pretty tight, so just be sure that you don't end up twisting your LED bars around. Obviously they should be facing the inside of the enclosure once the cover is back on. Then we need to flip the tent back upside down one more time. This will give us access to the Velcro loops that we can loop back around the frame and reattach. Then we can look at the side of the enclosure with the female barrel jack facing the front of the tent. And this is where we're going to be installing our extension with the switch. This tent here has a pass-through on this side, so I'm going to put the male barrel jack connector through that side of the enclosure and then just connect it to the female barrel jack connector. And on this particular tent, the wire extension is long enough so the switch remains on the outside of this enclosure. Now we can use a few more cable ties to secure the wiring along the frame all the way down to the exit point, so that when we turn the tent right side up, none of those wires will dangle down and interfere with the equipment inside. And I'd just like to point out that I always put a cable tie between the LED bar and the barrel jack connector to keep those wires from getting pulled away from the LED bars. Then we can turn the tent right side up and make our final connection between the wire extension with the switch and then the power supply. Just a reminder, these connectors push and then twist to lock into place. And now we're ready for a test, and I've placed a laser cutter inside. And also keep in mind that right now I have all of my studio lights on. And despite that, you can see an enormous difference between when those lights are on and when they're off. And so now I'll turn these studio lights off and I'll just run the overhead ceiling lights on, like most normal people would do inside of their home or workshop. So now I have all of my studio lights off and just the ceiling lights on, and you may notice that it looks unusually dark, and that's also because I have my camera set right now not to artificially brighten the footage in low lighting conditions. And then with the LED bars on, it's much brighter and clearer inside, and you can see the camera has not adjusted for the brightness, but it may adjust a little for the white balance. And now we can unzip this cover and take a look inside and see how we've gone from dark and dingy to bright and crystal clear. These LEDs are a nice balance between warm and cool, and they fall into the nice white natural daylight color range. Personally, I find this makes working with my laser cutters and printers much more enjoyable, as it's easier on my eyes and I'm better able to see finer details in my work. Another detail worth mentioning here is that these LED bars have a very respectable color rendering index of 90. This means that the colors of the objects inside of your enclosure will appear very natural. Oftentimes, cheap white LEDs with a poor CRI will be missing the red component of the wavelength, and therefore red objects underneath those lights will look a little funny. I hope you found this video helpful with the installation of this kit, and if you haven't picked yours up already, head on over to my website, embracemaking.com. That's where you'll find this item, and I have a wide variety of accessories and upgrades for both 3D printers and laser cutters, and the collection is constantly growing. You're bound to find something interesting, and it's a great way to support this channel while getting something in return. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, see you next time.